a task force to review and assess the state tourism industry and making recommendations regarding additional funding, training, and other resources needed to increase diversity and inclusion in the tourism industry. The Tourism Act of 2008 required that Maryland Tourism Development Board to provide a grant of no less than $2.5 million to destination market organizations, we call them DMOs, for the purpose of attracting and visitors to the state of Maryland. In fiscal 2019, 3 out of the 25 jurisdictions, that includes 24 counties, 23 counties, I'm sorry, in Baltimore City, and then of course Ocean City, they received about 14% of those particular grants. So we, by creating this task force, we can best assess how the fundings are allocated and on the basis for the imbalance, expanding the industry and cultivating a more diverse and environment will showcase and highlight the enriched cultures that we have here in Maryland. HB 1541 will allow the opportunity of collaboration amongst the key stakeholders to provide and analyze ways to cultivate more tourism by expanding markets, including diversity, and reaching small businesses and the African American community. They include potential increases and expanding the industry in Maryland. And for that particular reason, I'm going to request a favorable report. And now we'll hear next from Mr. Fields.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the committee members for giving us this opportunity to talk about this really, really important subject. First, I'd like to thank Senator Jill Carter, who has successfully passed this companion legislation 707 out of the Senate last week. And of course, we thank our sponsor here today of HB 1541, Delegate Benjamin Brooks. We really appreciate their leadership in helping us to work through this particular issue. My name is Louis Fields, and I am the director of the Baltimore African American Tourism Council of Maryland. And our task for the last 24 years has been to research, document, preserve, protect, promote African American history and culture in our state, and then to take that product to be a part of the Maryland tourism industry, which is an $18 billion industry. And some of the things we have done successfully in Maryland, in year 2000 we came here and successfully persuaded the Maryland General Assembly to pass March 10th as Harriet Tubman Day. We followed that up working with the late Senator Decatur Trotter, Buffalo Soldier Day passed in the state. We've also led to the creation of a $3 million park in West Baltimore. We have led to the creation of the Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce, the Maryland Black Writers Guild, as well as the African American Historical Society of Western Maryland. And so today, this bill, in our opinion, seeks to first do a fact finding and see what the status and the opportunities are for people of color in our great state to be a part of Maryland's $18 billion tourism industry. And we have tried over the years to communicate with the Department of Commerce, which houses the Office of Tourism Development, as well as its related Tourism Development Board, to ask to have them look into what is their diversity plan, how do they see their agency opening up opportunities for people of color and other minorities. And in these conversations, we haven't had very much success. Some success, but not in no great detail. So quickly, I just want to point out a couple of reports that recently tells this story better than I can. For example, in the Governor's Office of Small Minority Business and Women Business Affairs annual report of FY 2017, it shows the MBE awards by state agencies. And when you look at the Department of Commerce, their MBE participation was at a low of 3%. And then in another report, which is FY 2019, the Maryland Office of Tourism Development issued a report stating they had given out, in addition to the $3.2 million of grants, they gave out another $573,000 in grants. And so we quickly just asked, are any minorities or any African Americans receiving any of these grant funds? And the answer is no. And so we have constantly asked, would they create a new initiative within the state tourism so that we wouldn't even have to be here today? Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, in the last, I guess, 6-7 years, we haven't been able to get the right answers. So that's why we're here today, ask for your favorable report on this particular legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Mr. Brooks, thank you very much. Mr. Fields. I'm the grandson of Cab Calloway, who is from Baltimore, Maryland. I would like the committee to consider this as an example of the lack of inclusion. On February 2nd, 1942, my grandfather released a single called I Want to Rock. This was 12 years before Buddy Holly and the song Rock Around the Clock, which was considered the first rock and roll song. This means a person from Baltimore essentially laid the foundation for rock and roll music in America. He further is considered the grandfather of hip hop because of his extensive and commercially successful deployment of improvised melodies. His sister, Blanche, who is also from Baltimore, was truly the architect of much of the 20th century's popular entertainment. She actually taught her brother, Cab, everything that he knew. This history, I believe, is not known by many people in Maryland. It certainly, I feel, as his grandson, is undervalued by the state. However, our family is valued by people around the world. We, each year, increasingly get up to about 6 or more visitors who seek information, the opportunity to spend time with us and learn more about this history. And these are just the people that we know about. My grandfather's house was found in the middle of last year. A filmmaker from Maryland, Mr. Dan Bell, went into the house even though it was condemned. His YouTube video had over 100,000 views in just a month. This is just one example of the idea that inclusion could be a tremendous benefit to our state if this task force were allowed to proceed. I would also like to point out that there's enormous interest in Native American culture in Europe. And Maryland, because of its proximity to the National Museum of the American Indian, its outstanding facility at Baltimore-Washington International Airport, the density of many Native American sites here in Maryland, makes this a much more attractive destination for people from Europe when you consider Montana, North Dakota, and other states. These types of opportunities will be revealed by this task force, and therefore, as a private citizen, I implore the Ways and Means Committee to ratify.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Delegate Brooks on this panel? Delegate Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Delegate Brooks, for bringing this bill to us. Representing Southern Maryland, we have a lot of hidden history in our region, and so certainly we hopefully will be able to be part of this. Is there a timeline for the duration? I'm trying to do a quick courtesy look for the task force system. Is it 1 year, 2 years?
It's a 1 year.
It's a 1 year task force. And within the task force structure, will there be a chance for submittals of historic significance, i.e., when people hear about it or the members, is there a way for some communities to remit their area and why it should be recognized?
Yeah, well, the task force first and foremost is going to determine, figure out why the African American community is not getting a larger share of that particular budget, and see where those imbalances are. And from that, then I'm sure Mr. Fields, he's one of the ones that he's recorded tremendous amounts of information on African American history, and he can address that to it.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Patterson. One of the entities that we represent, unofficially, if you will, is the African American Society of Charles County, and the wonderful museum that Mrs. Louise Webb gave her whole lifetime to work on. And sometimes we feel our input to the department would increase the promotions, the inclusion of smaller entities such as the one in Charles County. But in our great state, it's every county. And oftentimes, people who are the leaders of those counties' tourism offices, they're short budgeted, understaffed, and some of the lesser known, but more, still very important places that tourists would love to see, are not always included. And so it's our hope the task force takes information from those places like that in your county, every other county, and helps the state Office of Tourism and its board include those places in its statewide marketing approach and resources as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Brooks, for the bill. How many DMOs do we have in the state?
There are 25.
25 DMOs. And then how much money does the tourism industry receive from the state?
That's $2.5 million.
So out of that $2.5 million, how much is actually going towards African American museums or within the industry itself?
Okay, I'd say probably less than 3%. Something is that correct, Ms. Fields?
And I could add to Dr. Brooks' statement, the Maryland budget funds two entities. The Office of Tourism Development receives about $3 million, and the Maryland Tourism Development Board receives about $9 million. And of those dollars, they do have a grant program, but the grant program the state operates currently is restricted to only go to the county tourism offices. So they may do some advertising towards the African American marketplace, but in terms of creating a fund similar to the Department of Planning's fund, they have a $1 million African American Heritage Fund for the state of Maryland. We think the task force would lead us in that direction for tourism.
So out of the African American tourism industry that you represent, how much money on an annual basis would you say you guys need?
Well, when you look at every county and what we have in every county, we had asked the state to start with a $500,000 fund out of that $13 million. We felt that.
You would say you need $500,000?
Not my organization personally, but this would be a statewide fund for all of the smaller entities statewide to apply to.
And then I was reading the bill here, it says other resources as necessary. What other resources would this task force be looking at?
Well, okay. One of the issues that we believe would be talked about and discussed in the task force is the communications. How do the State Department see itself ensuring that everyone receives the same information at the same time? Applications and deadlines and guidelines are all critically important to all small nonprofit organizations. And if we are getting the information late, kind of problematic. And then there's another issue when opportunities are for promotion of places in our state. We want to make sure that Native American, African American entities are included. So if a family comes into Howard County, Carroll County, any county, and they are looking specifically for an African American experience, it's not such a hard task as it may be right now for them.
So you're not looking for anything separate from what the tourism industry already has. You're just asking to be included in finding out what the task force says that there may be some additional resources for you guys.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
I would say that and the inspiration to create organic, grassroots types of tourism activity.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the witnesses? All right.
If I could just add one statement that's very important to the economy of Maryland. Currently, African Americans are generating and spending over $1.2 trillion a year. And as it relates to travel and tourism, they're spending over $90 billion a year. And our state, Maryland, could do well